Good evening, Fernwood. It is your TV pal Neil, and it's time for some more late-night hilarity with the next episode of Fernwood Tonight. If you are just seeing my face for the first time, I've been reacting to all of Mary Hartman. I finished that a couple of weeks ago, and now it's time for us to continue that tradition by reacting to all of Fernwood Tonight. If that sounds like it's your bag, stick around. We are watching today episode 6 from July 11th, 1977. Yeah, last week was a whole deal with a lot of things going from cringe to yikes, and also some laughs. Let's recap last Friday. Barth and Jerry warmed up the crowd with some banter about corporal punishment, and then we brought back the Dunbars. Debbie Dunbar had been spanked on the previous episode, and her mother was really angry, but on Friday, she had seen that it turned into a lot of opportunities for her daughter. We then chatted with Coroner Russ Tuttle, who came out to show some exciting new advancements in the field of burying your loved ones. The Dunbars are joined by Debbie's sister Stacy, and then that puts Barth and Jerry on a conversation about the importance of family. Barth follows that up with a rendition of the hit song Feelings as Debbie Dunbar does a cheer routine in the background. Then Garth Sr. pops out with Louie to show us some more tricks, and the whole guest panel joins for a reprise of Feelings. As I said, everyone last week sent me to a lot of spaces. My head was spinning, so let us continue.
Tonight from Fernwood, Fernwood Tonight, coming to you live with your host for tonight, Mr. Barth Gimbel. Tonight, Barth's guest will be Vernon Taylor, known as Uncle Sam Jr., Mrs. Pearl Bender, senior citizen, Roy and Craig Bender, her miserable sons, Mrs. Candy Lee Hargrove from the Fernwood Fascinating Females League, Happy Kind and the Mirth Makers, and me, I'm Jerry Hubbard. And now, your host and mine, Mr. Barth Gimbel.
Thank you. Hey, come on. Hey, I was born with it. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is terrific. We got a great show for you tonight. I know that everyone comes out and says that's sort of a cliche, you know, but every cliche has a kernel of truth to it, and on this show, I guess I'm that kernel. And as long as I'm in charge, we will have a great show. That's the way I feel. I had a wonderful time, and 2 or 3 weeks I've been here in Fernwood. It's just been marvelous. This past weekend was exceptionally good. Out on the links, it was made, I think, especially good, primarily because of the generosity of Buzzy Reynolds at Buzzy's Sporting Goods at 3310 West Olympic Street. Boy, what a wonderful set of clubs he sent over. Just out of the goodness of his heart. It was incredible, you know, and don't have to plug him or nothing, which is real nice. And he sent over a set of woods and some irons, had a sweet spot in that 9-iron. Oh, here's the caddy. Lost a few pounds chasing those balls, didn't you? That's good, Jeff.
I hope so.
Yeah, this 9-iron's got a sweet spot. What, I arched that thing about 115 yards?
Yes, yeah, you put it on site
Great.
there.
Game would be perfect, I think, if I had a new putter. Well, I'll go down and see. I'll be seeing Jerry to buy some golf balls this weekend. Maybe I can price a couple.
Yeah. He's about the most reasonable in town.
Oh, sure. I think he's probably the only place I'd ever shop. That's, you know, it's down 3310 West Olympic Street. Also went down to the community college here in town and took a look at some of the cheerleading tryouts they're having down there.
How'd they look? Huh?
How did they look? Listen, talent ought to be the middle name of Fernwood Talent, Ohio, if you ask me.
Yes.
Boy, there's some girls down there that could be right in the front rank of the Fontainebleau Hotel, the high kickers. I swear. Just some really good-looking ladies down there. At any rate, that's what I did. We got a big show tonight. As I say, we should get going with it. Our first guest tonight is a man familiar to everyone in Fernwood. He was the former postmaster here, and assistant postmaster. I'm sorry, I don't want to say anything about the postmaster. Before he was forced to retire in 1973 due to a cutback in, there's a lot of other things, too, we won't go into to save him the embarrassment. Since then, he's been composing his own verses for the Fernwood Courier. He's especially good on patriotic poetry for special occasions such as Washington's birthday and Groundhog's Day and things like that. He's been writing under the pen name, or nom de plume, so easy when you know the language, of Uncle Sam Jr. So tonight I'm proud to introduce him as himself, Fernwood's own Vernon Taylor, in a segment.
Thank you, friends. You know, I'm beginning to feel sorry lately. Sorry for the people who only see the bad in this country. I say it's high time somebody stands up and says what's right about America. And like the song says, it might as well be me. I feel sorry for everyone in this country today who has never scored a touchdown in the Rose Bowl. Yes, you know who you are. For everyone who has never stayed up late to watch the Star-Spangled Banner because they were watching rock and roll till all hours. I had a belly full of all the crybabies who think some hippie park is more precious than all the redwood patio furniture ever made. Why is it you never hear the teenager in Cuba squawk about Castro polluting Havana with his communist cigars? And why don't they try busking the Arabs to school and save us the trouble of bringing over the oil? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Arabs have never seen a home run or a sunset. Well, I've seen both. And I'll tell you, I'm proud to say I was an American first and then become something else later. My next number, I'd like to do a little number by Tommy Dorsey. Or something like this. Happy?
We'll be right back after this word. Thanks, Hap. Well, we're back again here with our second week.
Yeah?
And I'm happy. Who would have thought it? It's right. Happy to say, Jerry, that business of being on a one-to-one, one night after night contract there, which I thought was kind of silly.
Yeah.
That's all over. And the powers that be here at Channel 6 have given me a contract for the whole week. They're that happy. Huh? How about it? Great. It's just a measure of confidence, I guess, in yours truly.
Yeah.
So I can rest easy now. We'll be here right through Friday, so I think that's good news for everyone.
You know, Barth, I knew all about that daily contract, and I think you should know that I jumped in on your side. As you know, and most of the audience knows, my brother Conrad is station manager here. And we kind of put our heads together, and I thought you were quite competent most of the time. And I said, hey, why fool around with that daily contract? You know, give him the security of 5 shows in a row, and what's the worst that can happen? He'll take a pratfall, a nosedive, I'll jump in and bail out the ship with the help of Happy Kine and the Mirth Makers. Am I right, Hap?
Yeah. We've got a lot of songs we could play, you know, just in case Barth's humor goes down the tidy bowl or something.
Ooh, let's hope that doesn't happen, no. So we got all bases covered here. Everything is covered, so no matter what you do here, you can't cause any real heavy damage.
I certainly appreciate that from both you fellas. Hey, Vern, where are you going? Poor Vernon, he was a little bit nervous about coming on the show, first time in television, and he had himself a couple of beers, you know. I guess he just found out the hard way. You don't buy beer, you rent it. He'll probably be a little while, too, because there's no light in there.
That's right. And he took his trumpet with him.
Oh, yeah. Well, he may practice and get that echo effect, which is always kind of interesting. So we'll go on to another guest here. I think we've all read stories of people being reincarnated as somebody else, or of people with more than one personality, like the Three Faces of Eve, that wonderful Joanne Woodward thing, and Sybil, very popular. There are even some cases of people with no personality at all. Right, Jerry?
I have no opinion on that.
Yeah, right. Well, The Fernwood Courier recently had an opinion, and they broke the story of a lady right here in Fernwood who has been possessed with the soul of another person. Please welcome that very lady, Mrs. Sylvia Miller.
Cool.
Sylvia, have a place on our humble couch.
Thank you.
When did you first realize that you weren't really you?
What has happened is another spirit from the past has suddenly taken over half of my soul and half of my body and half of my mind. What I'm trying to say that there are two people living here.
Oh. Is that why you're wearing such a bulky dress?
Jerry. Jerry, be nice, really. I'm sorry.
I think Mrs. Miller knows that I'm kidding. She realizes that you have to have a sense of humor about these things, don't you, Mrs. Miller?
Well,
tell me, are we going to have to pay a double scale for being on the show?
Jerry.
Well,
the devil made me do that.
well, actually, it's really not that amusing. You know, having two souls living in one body is terribly uncomfortable and rather crowded.
Which makes me have to ask you, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Who are we talking to right now?
Well, right this second, you mean?
Yeah, right as we talk.
Well, right now you're talking to Sylvia Miller. Now,
Sure.
that's the original me.
Right.
The other me is, at this particular time, sleeping.
Oh, that's good, because Sylvia Miller's the one we're paying. We want to pay someone we're not talking to. As I understand, the other person is a very, very famous person who has died, been reincarnated, and is coming back and living in your body. Who exactly is that other person living in your body?
It's Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, boy.
Boy, I hate to say this, but I kind of find that hard to believe. Marilyn Monroe died about 15 years ago.
Yes, that's correct. It's one of the formalities that one must go through in order to be reincarnated. It
Right.
was 15 years ago, yes.
She has to die and then come back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I feel like a complete fool.
Good feeling.
But anyway, I think I read about some of the things that Marilyn Monroe caused you to do while she inhabited your body. Isn't it true that she made you go and pose for a local community newspaper in the
What?
nude? A photograph in the nude or all natural?
You heard about this? Yes,
Yes.
she did.
And I remember reading the caption of that picture. It
No,
says,
she just took all her clothes off and just stretched out right there in front of the campus.
in this case,
and
they
it was
were
very-
actually your clothes, which...
Yes, it was very
The caption of the picture,
heartbreaking.
incidentally, read, "Who says nudity has to be arousing?"
Well, with Marilyn Monroe's spirit taking over your body like that, did you ever find yourself living in the past? Like, for instance, wanting to go over to Joe DiMaggio's house to have a drink or something?
No, I haven't, but it's very strange. I have bought two perfectly new coffee makers, and my old ones are marvelous. I don't understand. Now that you mention that, you know, I never was a baseball fan, but I have this strange compulsion. Every time the Fernwood Frogs play a home game, I find myself sitting in the stands.
Well, that's understandable with the Fernwood Frogs, because Marilyn didn't like baseball either, and they're terrible. She just happened to be in love with one of the players, I think was actually all it was.
I think I'll just wait and see. But I must say, it's very eerie. Even now, when I'm Sylvia, I find myself just in mid-conversation talking to strange people saying, are you new in town, sailor? It's just...
Oh, that's very good,
It's
incidentally.
very scary, you know. And I remember I was talking to a man, and all of a sudden, this voice came out, and I said, don't be nervous, it's Harold's night off. I mean, I was mortified. And I find myself going and just sitting strangely and finding myself in strange poses. And it's very embarrassing. And
Well,
What nights is Harold's bowling night again? It's Tuesday night. Tuesday night?
yes, but you can imagine how...
I can, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can imagine you being there in the nude.
this is very interesting, certainly interesting, Mrs. Miller, but I think your evidence is well documented, and I think we've seen enough, frankly.
Is Marilyn still sleeping?
No, she's waking up.
Oh, is she? I'd like to tell her, I was a great fan of yours.
Thank you.
Morning, Marilyn.
Yes. Well,
No, I think we've seen enough.
Thank
This is
you.
terrific. I'm
I
convinced.
must go. I'm seeing a very tall, Jewish-looking fellow who's a playwright.
Oh,
Oh.
Excuse me.
well, you can keep your same last name, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you. Hi. You know, the feminist movement has been a wonderful thing in the world, and Fernwood is no exception. Our next guest is leader of a group that feels they've gone one step beyond women's lib. I think you've heard of these people, Jerry.
I think so.
They've gone from liberation to absolute fascination. And
Yes.
the leader of the Fernwood Fascination Female Group is with us tonight. Please welcome Mrs. Candy Lee Hargrove.
I'm Jerry Hubbard. Sit down there.
So
Hi.
nice. Hi.
Are you comfy?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I just think I'll just snuggle right up.
Okay, good. Now listen, could you tell us who belongs to the Fernwood chapter of the Fascinating Females League, and just exactly what is a fascinating female?
Well, who belongs is me and a bunch of local girls who just really enjoy being a fascinating woman and doing what we do.
In other words, you just sort of sit around and enjoy each other's company and the fact that you're women and fascinating.
Oh, yes, that's a lot to do because there's so much to enjoy being a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And we discuss things like clothes and makeup and hair, like my hair last week. And we also delve into new things like sprays. There's just a world of sprays out there.
This would be like the aerosols that you'd find in the home.
And we have seminars on things like what to shave and what not to shave. And all these things are just helpful to make the men in our lives more happy and fascinated.
Well, that's fascinating in itself, isn't it? How do you go about fascinating that way?
Well, there's a million zillion ways. But, for example, one way is putting a drop of perfume in your husband's laundry so that when he pulls out his briefs out of his drawers...
Or vice versa. Whoa, excuse me.
Well, anyway...
Okay. Sorry.
Little things like that just keep him on your mind and vice versa, too, all day long. And just, it's wonderful.
Wow, that's just great. Now, you say you do these different surprises and you pull tricks on him and things like that. Well, not so much tricks, more surprises is what you said.
Surprises are our main thing.
Okay, how would you go about making a surprise for the old man? Or you wouldn't call him that, would you?
No,
What
we
would you-
call him Honey.
Honey, okay. Maybe dear?
Yeah.
Fine.
My husband's real name is Maurice, and just last week I had a wonderful surprise for Maurice. He loves peanut butter and jelly on rye sandwiches.
Who doesn't, really?
I know, and I always fix 2 for his lunch. So this one particular day, I only fixed 1 for his lunchbox.
Oh, whoops.
I know, and when I just...
He didn't know about this.
No, he didn't know, because that's a surprise.
Sure,
You can't know, see? So, the thing was, I knew, I was at home, and I knew, boy, when he's at work, he's just going to go, darn that Candy Lee, she knows I like 2 sandwiches, and there's only 1. So I just laughed all day long, and then when he opened the door that night, there I was dressed as a giant peanut butter and jelly on rye sandwich. And if you could have, can I touch your foot? If you could have just seen the look on his face, he was just so happy.
Absolutely.
And he said, but don't fix that for a while.
You were dressed up as a peanut butter and rye bread sandwich. Sort of getting your bread in front, so to speak. You hear about that? That's great. Well, Candy Lee, this is fascinating talking to you about this. I know. Well, that's probably where you got the name for the group.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, for crying out
Some
loud.
people said, boy, Candy, you're sure fascinating. And I said, ooh.
Yeah, so you just took it up in real life, so to speak.
Kind of makes the term only a housewife outmoded, right? A lot of women will say, I'm just a housewife. And that's,
Aren't they foolish?
that's a lot of work. It's a full-time
Absolutely.
job, isn't it?
If they would come just to one of our meetings and see what this is about,
Put themselves
they
in
would,
your shoes for a
boy,
while.
they just say, yeah, walk a mile in my little platform shoes.
Yes,
and they
sir.
just say, cuckoo on women's lib and right on fascinating female.
Absolutely. You just want to really go out there and make sure that all men are as happy as can be.
Uh-huh.
Well, how many men can you personally keep happy at one time?
I don't want to say because I think Maurice might be listening.
Oh, basically you just deal with your one husband
Just
or your
right
one
now,
boyfriend.
yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a little
Dolls or
too
something.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Could you maybe come back sometime and bring some of the other fascinators with you?
Yes, I'd like to meet some of them.
Oh, yeah.
We could probably use the ladies' touch around here, just tidying up and things
I
like that.
noticed you are a little dusty.
Want some candy?
No, thanks.
Okay, fine. We'll be right back after this one. thank you. I was going to say thank you, Happy, but we got Happy right here with us. We wanted to bring him over and let you people get another look at him. You know something, Candy Lee? I have an idea. On the show coming up, we're going to have a segment called Bury the Hatchet, where we're going to have two different people argue out something, you know, pro and con. I don't mean we're going to have prisoners, but, you know, one person on either side. And just the idea, I think that with your stance with the fabulous females here in Fernwood, if we could get one of those women's livers, the ones that won't touch a mop, well, maybe we can have the two of you on either side of the coin and argue the thing out. That'd be terrific. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, because, well, I've heard, now we're really into false eyelashes, and I've heard they hardly even use mascara. And I think that would be probably real interesting for the ladies and the men and the little girls and
Absolutely, just sort of like a round table kind of gripe. We could even do, maybe, Vernon, you might even have a few things. I noticed you had some points you were making pretty firmly there before.
Well, I'd like to see the Garberys picked up a couple of times a week. The draft Dodgers could do that.
Yeah. It'd be just terrific if you all came back, and we could maybe could even get you in, and we could have a three-way. Why not?
Sure.
If we could iron out everybody's problems in this town, it'd be a great place to live. Not that it isn't. It's a wonderful place. A beautiful town. It's going to be even more beautiful when you finish it. You know that? You see all the construction work.
Wonderful.
Yeah, three-way. Of course, I don't mean it in the way some people are taking that, of course. I mean it for the argument. Oh, this is wonderful. You know something, I was thinking about this, and half this might sort of ring your bell, so to speak.
Please.
You know how so many entertainers who've reached the status that I now have sort of like a theme song. You know, Bob Hope will come on with "Thanks for the memories," etc., and Dinah always just went what's the other, you know, and "See the USA" and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I feel I ought to have some sort of signature piece. What do you think? Do you think that's kind of a pushy?
Sign of yes? No.
I don't think so.
Good night, sweetheart, or
Some kind of good night song.
A waltz is nice. You know, I mean, they're coming back. Well, they were out for a while now. Well, they're coming back at my house.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Was that recently? A lot of young people are watching. I don't want to bore them. You know?
No, I should say not. No, that's...
Think, what would be a good one?
Good night, Irene, or...
Well,
good night.
it should be good night Candy, except she's just here tonight.
Why not a salute to Fernwood?
Good night, Fernwood.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Good.
What key is that?
E flat.
E flat it is. I'm going to try this now. Fernwood, good night, Fernwood. Fernwood, good night. Good night, Fernwood, good night. Sleep tight till you go to sleep for good.
Just like your brother?
Everybody, good night, Sleep for good.
Also appearing on tonight's show were Vern Rowe as Vernon Taylor, Fanny Flagg as Sylvia Miller, and Geraldine Capel as Candy Lee Hargrove.
Well, this episode clearly brings us straight back into satire, pretty much all the way through. And it starts with some banter between Jerry and Barth. As always, we have no mention of why Barth left Miami, but then we bring on Uncle Sam Jr., Vernon Taylor, who goes on a patriotic poetry rant. And, well, from my eyes as an outside observer, he seems somewhat unhinged. Then he does a little bit of In the Mood, the Tommy Dorsey version. And then after the commercial break, we bring on Sylvia Miller, who has someone living inside of her. That person is Marilyn Monroe. There's certainly a lot of insults hurled, but I do feel like the characters we saw this episode are going to be recurring because I had to do a little bit of sorting. My source materials are kind of fakakta, so I had to figure out which episodes belonged where. Anyway, for sure this is episode 6, and this character, Sylvia Miller, is played by Fanny Flagg, who would go on to write novels like Fried Green Tomatoes, which later was adapted into a very popular feature film. But in this case, this is Jerry and Barth kind of mocking this woman for just not being voluptuous, I guess, or it was a lot of mean behavior on their parts. I think that's the simplest way to say it. And they don't really even let Marilyn wake up. We don't really see that part, but I know we're going to be seeing this character again because, well, I had to look at a list. Yeah, I don't know where this is going. All of these characters we're going to see again in this series. So we have our unhinged Uncle Sam Jr., we have our potentially multiple personality Sylvia Miller, and then we bring on Candy Hargrove, the founder of the Fernwood Fascinating Female Society, and that's the title of this episode. Candy is like the opposite of, I think, feminism at that point, or as it was known, women's lib. I cannot quickly deconstruct how feminism is maybe different than it was perceived in the 1970s, because Barth and Jerry are both saying things like, well, women's libbers, they don't want to pick up a mop. And I think it's different than that, right? The perception of real feminism isn't that we don't want to be housewives. It's more like women, and I can't be speaking from that perspective exactly, but can be more than that, can be something other than that. In an America where a large portion of the women are really that. And as we watched Mary Hartman, we had many viewers share their experiences of their own lives at that point. And there was one commenter who all of the women in her family during this period were working out of the home. So it's clear that women were in a transitional state in society, right? Like it was seen as normal on television. We can comment about television versus real life, but on television, for 20 years, most women were housewives, mothers, and not that you can't be a mother and have a career, but that was the role in the home and TV. But women's lib was seen as sort of attacking that norm, when it's really more like, as I imagine and have read, we can do more and be more than this. And if you do what you want, you may end up being a person who takes care of a home. You may be a homemaker. Nowadays, we'd say stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, for instance. At that point, it was seen as somewhat of an anomaly to want that. And Candy is the opposite, right? She is the woman who stays at home but also creates a little bit of fascination with herself. She's got a really strange sort of attractive ditziness to her, and not that ditzes are attractive, but that's sort of the appeal of this woman is sort of there's almost a naivete. She's a knife, N-A-I-F, that is fun and bubbly, which is sort of the thing that she's playing with. That whole bit about the peanut butter and pumpernickel sandwiches, that was amusing. That the surprise was that there wasn't two in the lunch pail, but also that you came home to one, and don't make this again for a little while. So then we transition to a little bit more. Happy comes back out to the couch to join the crew. And hey, that's where we are at this episode. We are establishing some of the patterns that we'll be seeing. And I haven't seen any of these episodes other than like to try to figure out what order they actually went into. I successfully did that. I spent all day yesterday trying to figure out. I recorded an episode and realized it wasn't in the right order. And then I had to fix it. I had to figure out what the correct order was. I don't know. I'm so lucky that there was a site that had an exhaustive listing of what happened in every episode. It means that I've slightly figured out some ideas that are going to be happening in this show, but I'll try not to reveal too much. In any case, that was our 6th episode of Fernwood Tonight. This one definitely had more clearly satirical leanings, and I'm sure that some of the stuff we heard last week was also intended as satirical, but didn't necessarily ring that way in my modern day view. This feels satirical. It feels like they're poking fun at the characters that are poking fun at the topic that they're discussing. And I hope that it engaged conversation, but we're laughing or cringing or reacting so much that sometimes we don't think about the things. So maybe you have some thoughts to share about this episode too. So everyone, that's all I've got to say for today. Go ahead and share your thoughts, feelings, and impressions down in the comments. We will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.